Welcome to DOK.fest at home. Welcome to the 35th edition of the International Documentary Festival in Munich. This year, everything is a little different. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we decided to go online and to screen our festival program online. Therefore, I'd like to welcome our Munich audience, but beyond that, also give a shout out and a welcome to all of you attending our festival online this year from wherever you are. My name is Silvia Bauer. I'm part of the programming committee for DOK.fest, and it's special privilege and pleasure for me to present the documentary The Cave by director Faris Fayyad as part of our program. We present The Cave in collaboration with National Geographic, and Faris Fayyad might be familiar to you because he's also the director of Last Man in Aleppo, a film that we screened at the festival a couple of years ago. And this year we present The Cave, which again brings us back to Syria. It's a special privilege for me to introduce you to Dr. Amani Ballour in a moment. She's the protagonist of The Cave. She's the manager of an underground hospital based in Eastern Ghouta in the suburb of Damascus that was evacuated in 2018. And the film tells the story of her and of the hospital in Syria. Before we start, I'd like to point out that we have the Audience Award, Kino Publikumspreis, which is donated by Bayerischer Rundfunk and Dreisat. And you can participate in voting for the award for the Publikumspreis by just clicking on the button that you find on the film website. And now it's my special pleasure to introduce Dr. Amani Ballour, the protagonist of The Cave. Hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
It's great to see you here for our short Q&A on The Cave. At the end of the film, we see you still in Syria, being evacuated, fleeing, going into exile from Syria. May I ask, where are you at the moment? I know that you are in exile since then.
Yes, I'm now in Berlin. I was in a tour in Europe, around Europe and the United States, but I stopped because of the pandemic, and I'm waiting now in Germany.
So you're based here in Germany, for the time being, at least. Can you tell us a little bit about, because we moved the festival online because of the pandemic, how's the situation with COVID-19 in Syria at the moment? Since the pandemic started, we hear very little about the situation in Syria. We hear a little bit about Idlib, and that the situation is very critical there, and that there are fires and the fighting is still going on, etc. But has the pandemic hit Syria, and how are the people dealing with that?
Yeah, in northwest Syria, actually, there's no positive cases for coronavirus yet, but we are very worried about the situation there because, you know, the healthcare system there is very weak. We have no enough hospitals or medical centers, and no enough medical workers. People are crowded in the camps, and millions of people are in the camps. They couldn't find even water to wash their hands. It's very difficult to find water. They share the bathrooms. About 100 families have one bathroom. So the situation there is very difficult and very bad. There's now ceasefire, but everything's still bad. About 1 million people displaced from their cities 3 months or 4 months ago, and they couldn't find shelters. So the situation in Northwest is still bad. In Assad regime area, actually, we don't know because Assad regime they started to deny at the beginning that they have coronavirus cases. We heard from our friends that they have cases, but we are not sure about that. We don't have information.
Mm-hmm. How are you dealing from Berlin? How do you consider the situation in Germany with the pandemic? Is it dealt well with, or do you have any criticism about how Germany is dealing with the situation?
No, fortunately, the situation in Germany is good comparing with other countries. How the government deal with that is great actually, and the people in Germany are very aware for what's happening. They protect themselves and protect others. So I'm really happy to see that here.
Mm-hmm. You've been in the United States earlier, and you were at the Emmy Awards and at the Oscar Awards because the cave had been nominated for both awards. What do you think about the situation in the United States? Because I heard that you were dealing with the situation and have been interviewed about that situation as well.
Yeah, do you mean about the coronavirus situation? Yeah, actually, in the United States, I just heard yesterday that they have 1 million cases for coronavirus. Actually, the population there is more than other countries, but really, I'm worried about the people because I have a lot of friends there. They all worried about the situation, afraid from the virus. I hope they all be safe, but. Uh, I didn't expect actually. I shocked to see the situation like that in the United States because they couldn't deal with the situation very well. They don't have enough medical supplies, ventilators. That's shocking for us to hear that about the United States. I think I really was sad. I don't know. I'm not happy to say that, but if there's a war, they have enough weapons. But now there's this situation, they couldn't protect their people. So I feel really worried about people there. I hope peaceful for them, for all of them.
Now let's come to the medical side of the film that we're talking about, of The Cave. You have been managing an underground hospital in Istanbul. Can you tell us a little bit about the background? There have been bombardments and attacks over the last years, and what is actually quite horrible is that something that used to be outlawed a long time ago, like bombardments of hospitals, shelters, schools, has become normal in the last years when we look at the war in Syria. And so a lot of hospitals have been bombarded, and the hospital that you are managing or that you managed went underground. Please tell us a little bit about that background.
Yeah, the situation in the Eastern Ghouta was very, very bad. I didn't expect to face some kind of life like that. It was death everywhere, death around us. I was in underground hospital for more than 5 years, all the time, bombing, starvation. You know the situation, under siege, no food, no medicine, no medical supplies. It was very difficult to get everything with very high prices. And our hospital, at least they bombed us about 20 times or 30 times. I can't remember. They bombed us a lot. And I remember once in 2015, they bombed our hospital. It was underground, and they myself entered underground, and they killed 3 of my colleagues. So it was horrible all the time. We didn't expect the brutality way for Assad regime and his allies to deal with people. There were about 500,000 people, 100,000 child in Al-Ghouta. So I can't describe it in words. It was very horrible life.
The structure of the hospital, was that already there before? Because in the film we see some structures of tunnels and underground kind of architecture. How did you find that? Was it there? Did it need to be built while working on the hospital, or what was the situation like?
Yeah, at the beginning, there were just a basement, only the basement with no tunnels. But after, year after year, we couldn't move on the surface because of pumping all the time. That's why we try to protect the patient, to protect ourselves. So we made these tunnels to connect between the medical centers. We expand the basement. We divided it to be a hospital. It didn't supposed to be a hospital. It's just basement under a building, empty building. And then we start with a 3-room or 2-room, and then we expand it year after year. We make the tunnels, and it becomes very big at last.
There are some very cruel scenes because of all the bombardments and all the hurt and pain that we see in the film. And there's also a lack of supplies, of course, being under siege, being situated under siege. And a situation that I found very heartbreaking is that there was a lack of anesthetics, and so you turned on classical music to calm the patients. How did that come about? And
Yeah,
did
it
it
was
work?
very, yeah, it was very difficult to get medicine or medical supplies in that situation. And I remember some people died because lack of food, lack of medicine, especially in 2014 and 2015. Then after we have these channels, we try to smuggle some things. But to anesthesia, it was very difficult, and it was in very high prices by some moderators working with Assad regime. They bought us something very high prices. So it was very difficult to get it. To start an operation, we need some 3 or 4 sometimes materials to start the operation. So sometimes we just have 1 or 2. Of course, we didn't do any operation without anesthesia, but we have just some materials. That's why actually my colleague Dr. Salim used the classical music to feel comfortable himself and to make the patients feel more comfortable, more relaxed. They didn't want them to hear the sounds of bombing or the sounds of the sounds in the hospital. Everything is horrible for the patients, so he tried to make them relax.
Did it work?
Actually, sometimes, of course, not all the time, because of the pain of the patients. The injured people, they were in pain all the time, and some people feel angry of that. They don't want to hear anything, no music, and they shout sometimes. But some patients, yeah, feel comfortable with that.
I was very impressed how calm you remained when you encountered sexist remarks time and again by some patients, by other people who said that there shouldn't be female doctors out and about, and especially not managing a hospital. You studied medicine at the University of Damascus, and you specialized as a pediatrician. And in the film, we also encounter some more female colleagues of you working in the hospital. How big was the threat of men who uttered like sexist remarks or other religious ideological remarks and threats at you?
Yeah, actually, this is because of the culture from long time in our community. This image about women, that you are women, you have to stay at home to cook and clean. This is everything about women in our community. To be a doctor, it's okay, and to work as pediatrician is okay for them, and they didn't say anything to me. But when I became a manager of the hospital, they refused that. They said, no, we want man. It's a very difficult situation, and you can't. And because they said you can't, that really provoke me, that make me insist to continue to approve that I'm a doctor and my colleagues are doctors. I can do like what they did, and maybe I can do better. So I insist to stay and to challenge them. I really wanted to change this culture, this thoughts about women. And actually, I felt sometimes I felt that I succeed in that, because after about 2 years of being a manager of the hospital, some of the men came to me and said, you really succeed. They are the same men who said you can't. They came and they said you did a great job. And I was very happy to hear that, because they have this culture for a long time and I could change them. And this made me believe that we can change everything in this life. There's nothing impossible. But of course, we have to work hard, we have to be patient, but we can.
So there were successful struggles. You are the protagonist of the film, The Cave, while the director of the film, Faris Fayyad, is working in exile. He's living in exile. So how did the whole shooting of the film take place? How many camera engineers, sound engineers were involved in the project? And were there any dangerous situations that you encountered while shooting the film?
Yeah, actually, Firas called me at the beginning of 2016, and he sent his team, just 3 young men, 3 photographers with 3 cameras. No engineers, no nothing about sound. They have only 3 cameras. They started to make the film. I refused that at the beginning because it was very dangerous to film at the hospital. People were all the time angry, and they don't want to see cameras all the time. And to me, it was very difficult to be filmed while I was working all the time. I have to work in the emergency room in my clinic and as a manager of the hospital. But then I said yes because I really wanted to tell the truth for all people around the world. And they started to film. I was talking with Firas all the time over the phone, and he explained that the ideas that he wants really to tell the truth. We agree about that, and they still filming for about 2 years.
So it took 2 years to do the film. Now you yourself are also in exile, and you keep on fighting for the cause, and you have turned into a campaigner for the Al-Amal Fund. Can you tell us a little bit what that is about?
Yes, we established this fund in partnership with the King Woodbone Foundation. It's in Belgium, and they support this fund. This fund to help and support women and young girls in conflict zone, not only in Syria, to empower women, to help the women leaders, the women medical workers, to help them to study, to find scholarships, to support them. Because I was in the situation. Where people oppress women, where they try to make them just to stay at home, no study, nothing. So I really wanted to support these women. I might started in Syria, but of course it's for all women who need help. So this is my goal now, to help women. And unfortunately, I stopped for some time because of this pandemic, but of course I will continue working on that.
So how can we support the fund? What can we do as the audience? How can we support your work?
Yes, they can, who want to support women, they can donate for this fund. We have a website, and we can share it with all the people to donate for this, to support women.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you, Dr. Amani Ballour, for presenting The Cave at our DOK.fest Munich Festival, DOK.fest at home this year. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I want to remind you that you can vote for the Audience Award Kino Publikumspreis when you click on the button. And if you haven't seen The Cave yet, you are invited. The festival is running till the 24th of May. And please have a look and watch The Cave by Faris Fayyad. Thank you so much.